Hello and welcome. This is your GM in the Great Barrier, back with Star Trek Adventures Aegis. So we are back today, continuing our recent episode. That would be Star Trek Adventures Aegis and the Starry Compass. We are on part 4 of our 13th episode. When last we left off, the Aegis had discovered a site where Vulcan and Andorian vessels had absolutely slugged it out. Well out of the way of the main fight, much closer to Earth and much closer to Tellarite space in the region that you've very generally been patrolling. You weren't sure why they would be this far out up until you had discovered a small ship belonging to a small crew of rogues, a human from Alpha Centauri, bearing the last name of Sloan, one of the engineers of great fame in the human warp program's earliest years, someone who worked right alongside Zephram Cochrane, a Denobulan archaeologist by the name of Dr. Natala, and an Aurelian by the name of Tenkayet Fen, who specializes in all manner of space sciences and astronavigation. This odd bunch seems to have been brought together by a mystery that they've recently revealed to you. They have managed to discover ruins of what are basically Bronze Age or older civilizations that evolved separately on two different planets, light years apart, which managed to develop very similar iconography, also seem to have developed sophisticated star maps that include the mathematical representations to track subspace, an extra-dimensional plane of existence, something that your starships interact with that basically allows for warp travel, among other things, to work the way that it does and kind of enables spacefaring civilization. It is obviously something well beyond what civilizations of that era could observe. It's indeed not something that something in a civilization in our relative technology would be able to observe. But in any case, the fact that this was discovered was already terribly interesting, but it's made more so by the fact that apparently the Vulcans and seemingly Andorians committed a fleet to this end. At least the Vulcans did. From what you've been able to investigate, that's at least the suggestion from the data that you acquired on the two ships. The Vulcans apparently came after this ship on its way back to Alpha Centauri by order of the Vulcan High Command. The Andorians appeared to have been operating an independent task force and gave chase. But obviously, with results not being in the Andorians' favor, it was a slugfest that wound up largely destroying both battle groups, it seems. In the midst of all of that, you started working with the data, and in particular, Saral, the ship's Vulcan guide and independent madman, seems to have some sort of special technology up his sleeve, because he's been able to plug in all of the information and by some means seem to have constructed what appears to be a map, at least a partial one, and that map has suggested that there is a final location that might help you triangulate whatever is of significance on this. The map seems to point you to Fomalhaut, a star some light years away from Earth and from your present location. At high warp, it has taken roughly a week's travel in order to get there, but you have set a course in order to locate that. There is one other important item of note. Before leaving, the crew seems to have made contact with an Andorian ship that you haven't been able to determine a location. They are playing it very quiet or are perhaps very far off, but they seem to be aware of one pertinent detail. They know exactly who is on board this ship in terms of the lone Andorian crew member and military attaché, with at least some of the communication relayed to her being of a deeply personal nature. So with all of that, I think that we are going to pick up with the Aegis at warp on its course for Fomalhaut. Um, by this time, you have you've traversed most of the distance, and you will be approaching a practical sensor range for Fomalhaut very soon. Before we get into the specifics of the mission, I guess I just want to do a quick run around the horn. Everybody give me like a quick sort of just brief description of what you think your character's been up to, or any very small things that you might have done in the intervening time. Um, we'll just go down the list here. So, Panda, what would Colonel Sharp be up to in the week's time of setup? Or is there any information she would try to get? Any things she would try to relay, or just other tasks she'd set to?
I would try to get more data regarding the system we're about to enter, any sensor logs, trying to build strategies or tactics I can use to evade any Andorians or Vulcans that have reason to visit coincidentally, or any other possible threats that might arise, given the sudden interest that everybody has for whatever's here. I'm also just relaxing. In all honesty, once I'm done with those things, I'll just relax.
Fair enough. I will say, per the last session, and I'll make this visible on screen for those of you that are able to watch, and certainly all of you will see it again as far as the players go. Um, Fomalhaut, you have very limited information on due to the Starlight 7 probe was the first ship that had been, or rather, the first human sensor probe that had actually made it anywhere nearby, um, and it was still well off course because Fomalhaut wasn't deemed to be all that interesting, or it hasn't been um, over the past, say, century and a half. Um, this being due to its considerable radiation and the the extensive debris in the system. There was obviously a mission that was slated to investigate it later, but you would have been 2 years out from that even starting to take its readings. So I guess
was the debris just leftover star creation, or is it actual like ship wreckage and all that kind of stuff?
This is more natural formations. It's the planetary disk in Fomalhaut has like considerable accretion of like it's largely interstellar dust, although there could be some things that are larger there. Um, Most of what you're looking for is going to take a sensor reading once you get closer, which will be totally doable.
Now I've been thinking about it just now. I'm gonna look up our previous sensor logs regarding the Kzinti and their methods of their probable methods of stealth. Could I try to can I try to like make use of that in any sort of fashion? Mimic it?
And that might be an advantage that you could work out, and in particular, you would probably want Romanov's help here.
All right. Yeah, I'll do a small scene with Romanov.
Okay. So let's move you down, I guess, to engineering very quickly. Let's see. Romanov, you are presently
running around like a chicken with my head cut off, keeping the engines cool, right?
Yep. The engine room right now is a mild study in freneticism as as the various
keeping the engines cool and running.
Yep. It's the various
and working endlessly on building limpets.
Yeah, limpets has been my other priority. So she kind of has an engineering lab that is nearby engineering where she can kind of go back and forth and, put out fires in both locations.
Yep. A crewman's just delivered a pad to you, to the effect of, like, the requested mines have been completed in some large part. It did delve a bit into your excess hull plating stockpiles, so you're
Right.
going to run a little shy of patch repair kits that may impose other difficulties on you later or other slight issues, but we'll assign that on a
Well,
case by
we
case
did have
basis.
extra before. Like that was I logistics rolled that last session,
That's
so
right.
we got tons of spares that was just loose on the space station.
That is correct. I remember that.
Yes, that's right. So you won't have the extra advantage of the additional hull plating here, but it has translated into the limpet caltrops that the captain had proposed.
But we've still got enough that we would be normal stock for, for the starship, right?
Yes,
For a daedalus. Okay, great.
more or
That's
less.
all I
Yes.
need.
Anyway,
I would like to have a little more, but yeah, she's having a cup of coffee. She's looking at the data pad. She looks over at the other officer and says, "Okay, I'll be in to inspect those as soon as I'm done taking care of this cooling cycle.
uh,
Thank you for the information."
the crewman will salute you and go back towards the lab. Chief Rainier, or Chief Fernier rather, is reviewing the latest stats on the reactor. Well, Commander, I think we might be able to. I think we might be able to maintain high warp for. Oh, I think we could probably maintain it for another 36 hours, but I gotta say the plasma injectors are starting to be a little bit persnickety here. I gotta say I'd feel comfortable if we could whenever we could stop, if we could take maybe a bit of time to run on a low power mode.
Yeah, I'm going to pitch that at the captain. Our power is currently 6. Are we down anything from that? She's going to pull up the power grid and see how power is handling all this.
Yeah. I'll say that just a quick look over the um, over sensors show that you probably haven't been able to rebuild too much power in order to keep the warp drive running consistently. So anything
What's our
that
power at then?
let me check what
It's
the
usually at 6, I believe.
the maximum power. Okay, maximum power would actually be 6 here. So I'll. I think that we hadn't decided precisely the warp factor, so I'll tell you what. Um, as a
Well, I think since it's already established, we'll go to warp 4 ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and say that you've been at warp long enough that you've been able to very slowly feed power back into the stores.
Fair enough.
By nature
All
of the ship's advanced reactor design, you've been able to sustain it and very slowly regain power in that time.
Sweet. It's the best news I've had all week.
Yep.
Excellent work. I'll when I see the captain come in, I'll sort of slide down and meet her.
If anybody gets an attendance, she just waves it off as you were. Report. Run off.
We're doing good. We should take a cooling break at some point or bring the speed down slightly just to make sure we're not running into that system hot in case we need to move.
How long do you
So,
need to cool?
a
How long do you
cooling
need to
break,
cool down?
the plasma injectors, they're hanging in there. We don't want one of those to go if we're going to get in a crap fight.
Certainly don't. How long do you need for cooldown?
We're speculating if we stopped, just a couple of hours. Or if you think we could reduce our speed slightly, that would have the same effect. It would give those plasma injectors a time to cool down. I'm sketchy about rotating them. That's not a good solution.
She'll just nod, looking at the the reactor.
She's doing good, though. She's handling it.
Good. I have a question, Romanov. Perhaps you
Yeah.
can answer for it. Simple question, and certainly nothing to be concerned about. How low can you bring the containment field of the warp drive or the antimatter reactor?
The antimatter pods or the reactor system itself?
The pods.
GM, how low can I bring those based on my extensive experience
Well,
having done tons of shit to this particular ship?
well, you generally Starfleet is pretty insistent on stability and regulation in terms of the how tight those containment fields are for the antimatter pods. It would take considerable effort on each of the pods in order to reduce it anywhere below a minimum threshold, or like closer to a minimum threshold. You've got a lot of redundancies that you would need to override.
We could override some redundancies, ma'am, and bring it a little lower. What's your thoughts? What's the idea behind? What's your goal?
Well, I was just looking over the after action reports regarding the Kazinti, and certainly they have a benefit, weirdly, in having passive stealth due to their erratic and spread out power systems. They run hot, but not very much hotter than anything else around here, compared to our centralized power supply. So wondering if we could somehow mimic it in any sort of fashion, even just for a couple hours at a time.
You mean turn the Aegis into a stealth ship, right? That's what you're looking
Just
for?
running it cold so that way it's equal to the rest of the radiation out there.
Is that viable?
Oh, let's see here. If you would like to roll on this, I could give you, let's call this a reason plus engineering roll.
Can I apply electroplasma power systems to that or warp field dynamics?
Certainly.
Okay, great. Focus used, 2 dice, and what did you say? Reason and engineering?
Yes, and this will be a difficulty 1 task.
Okay. And here we go.
Okay. Well, I think that you might have accidentally clicked
Yeah.
something off because it didn't include the engineering attribute there. That said,
Yeah,
that was
that's
a
weird.
12, so that should be 2 successes, and that one should actually be a critical success, so that very properly should be 3 successes on the board there. Uh, just for those that are watching here, you can see that that success there was in fact a 1. That 0 is in fact a 12. There's apparently something buggy with the sheet today.
Uh,
So Romanov, I'd say at that level of success, you know that with what the captain is asking for, and I'd say that you have a bit of a like you've had some time to analyze sensor readings from the Kazinti vessel.
right.
A lot of what they do in terms of reducing their power signature, some of it is the design elements that everything from the hull composites to layout of the ship's power systems that the captain was alluding to, how they vent radiation. A lot of that are elements that would be very difficult to replicate. Um,
Could we
it would
reduce power in certain areas and say reduce somewhat our radiation output to sort of replicate that?
that
Because I
would
get,
yeah, that is the avenue where you have the best chance to advance here. Essentially, that you could. It would come at some cost to systems, of course, but if you were to lower power output, then the ship would light up a little bit less.
I'll sketch that out and go, I don't know that we can really pull the Kazinti trick, but here's what we can do, lower our power output. But in a tactical situation, we'd want to have a little time to get power flowing back into those areas. So good way to sneak in somewhere, but once inside, if you want full tactical capacity, then we're going to want to bring everything back online.
She just looks at the pad. And I imagine we don't have enough time to build ourselves new battery or extra batteries, backup battery power.
No, not in the time frame that I think we've got right now. Plus, my teams are pretty busy just keeping her cool and building limpets. So I'm running around between engineering, cargo bay 1, and here. So we can put it on a wish list for the future, and I can start that, but I don't think I can whip anything up that short notice. That's worth it.
She nods.
We might be able to store a little power in the shuttles, but that's almost not worth it, Not
how many
power trains we have here.
How many pallets of limpets do we have at this point?
I'll look at they just brought me the report, so we'll check it out together. I'll pull up the report. How many limpets ready to go?
A narratively convenient amount of limpets. Such that
it's enough to suit our needs based on your request.
For the record here, any of you that look into the ship sheet now will notice that under the weapons, I have actually conferred to you the limpet caltrops, which I'm treating technically they are listed as a torpedo. I'm going to treat them as a mine, which will mean that their deployment rules actually, they require I believe it is a con and control roll plus something from the ship that I don't recall at the moment. I want to say it might be con and sensors or con plus weapons, but that in order to use them, first and foremost, the ship that would pass through the caltrops would actually have to roll against your successes on the mine laying task, and that if they do not succeed, then they are hit by the mines. Rather than doing damage here, I'm going to treat this kind of as essentially, the goal would be when you roll the mines, you want to attempt to gain an effect on the dice, because it doesn't properly do damage necessarily so much as you are looking for it to inhibit the warp effectiveness. And I think that an effect would signify that there is an effect to it.
It's supposed to just get in the way, not really do damage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Be a pain to remove.
Yes. So because of that, the harmonic limpet caltrops, as they are properly called, I've given them the special quality of warp inhibitor and also dampening, because anything that affects engines would translate to a loss in power. Also, the slowing quality, which prevents them from keeping the initiative by expenditure of threat in my case.
Great. Excellent. She smiles. I have one other minor little project for you.
Okay.
I need you to create a dummy comm traffic system. She hands you a communicator.
So, do you mean stellar, right? Create a probe that is
simply one of range of no more than, say, a few kilometers, enough to make it sound like there is commotion or somebody present in a location.
Okay, so this is faking a person being at a location.
Or
I like
people.
that.
Or people.
That's a slick idea.
I will say, because that task was a difficulty 1 task that you rolled earlier to assess the Kazinti issue, and since we've established that with the buggy dice roll, you actually should have had 3 successes on your task there. You could just create that as an advantage.
Okay. If everybody's good with that, we'll do that. That ought to be fairly easy to rig up. I'll just take a communicator. I'll reprogram 2 portable pads, attach it to them, and I'll just take some of our existing away team stuff and run it through one of the computers and change it, and it'll sound like an away team. Is that about basically what you're looking for?
More or less.
Fake away team, right?
Mm-hmm. Use this encoding, just
Okay.
so it isn't different, it isn't easy for them.
Fair enough. I'll encode it as well, so they've got to try to hack it to figure it out. And what I'll do, GM, what I'll do with that is take some existing away team sounds and stuff like that, but I'll set it up to where I can pull out the nouns, so the locations are slightly different. And so if we end up on a planet or a facility, I could replace some of those words, and it'll just use a simple program to change the voices to speak those words and blend it in with the already existing sentences.
You can also just like borrow crew members and be like, hey, read the script, and just record it.
Yeah, I'll do both. So we've got a customizable one, and we've got one that is just ready to go.
Cool.
Other than that, she's running fine. She's handled the hot ride, so to speak. So I'm pretty happy.
I'll have Conley bring us down to Warp 3 for the rest of the trip.
We figured Warp 4 would be optimal, so we can keep the speed up a little bit. It's up to you. You call it. You want a little more cooling? Yeah, go to Warp 3.
I want a little more cooling just to be on the safe side.
Okay.
Warp 3 is definitely going to do that more, since Warp Factor 4 is pushing it for the engines. Also,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and let you guys know you have your friends from the Broken Sword game have decided to influence the game. In particular, from chat, Caligo the Blue has redeemed the decrease the difficulty spend.
That's nice.
Yep, the next dice roll you have will decrease in difficulty by 1.
Thank you, Broken Sword.
Yeah, hey, they are an honorable bunch. Catch them.
That's a lie, but it's
when?
appreciated less.
Catch Star Trek Adventures Broken Sword 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Wednesdays, and oh dear, you've impugned their honor, and Caligo has now spent some Quatlus in order to grant the GM some threat. Instant karma.
Oh. So war it is then. War it is.
Couldn't trust him.
I mean, you
So
did.
you see, he fell for the oldest trick in the book and has spent more of his Quatlus. So the next time, they have less Quatlus.
You know, I'm just saying you impugned the honor of a Klingon crew, and
Many of them are actually Klingon.
Technically only 2/3, but this one, his character does have the honor, the sense of honor with the Klingon. Once again, you can find that out live Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/GM in the Great Barrier. You can also check out the full archive of Broken Sword adventures right here. YouTube.com/@the GM in the Great Barrier with underscores between them. But yes, the crew is not much for having their honor insulted, so that is simply the case here. Anyway, so with that, we'll say that Romanov, you set to work on rigging up the communicators, coordinating with Mr. Crichton in order to start getting some voice acting recorded here. While Sharp, you go off and ponder your decisions. Going on down the list, Commander Patel, what would you say that you are up to in these last in the time before you guys reach Fomalhaut?
So, I mean, I think he's probably doing what he always does, which is work, absorbing or burying himself in the books, as it were. So looking over the data that we have on Fomalhaut that you already shared, maybe looking up some info on that Aldrin mission that's supposed to happen in a couple of years. I don't know if maybe he is curious about the crew that was selected for like this scientific mission or something. Might know a couple of them somehow.
No.
How many quadlus to send a certain denobulin woman his way?
Oh, that technically I think that would be a 500 quatlu spend just to if you want to start that off with a particular voice line, then that would be well within the spends there, I think. But I suppose I could always plop everyone down in the what is it? Anyone
In the
who
mess hall or something, maybe.
Yes, that would be exactly the thought there.
Yeah, I guess I'm doing my reading on like a pad or something in the mess hall, drinking some tea or something.
Yes. Let's do that. Uh, just finding sheets there. All right. So, Patel, you are in the mess hall in a relatively quiet period for the ship. Obviously, some departments are busily working um, in order to prepare for the next phase of their mission here. Uh, to your end, you have relative quiet that you can work with. Um, Outside of a handful of command decisions that you've had to make while you are, um, or while Colonel Sharp is perfectly able to carry out some of the orders, and I imagine that some of the standard procedure has been continuing, say, the occasional drill for possible action, be it against Kzinti vessels or other raiders. Um,
I randomize it.
yeah,
It's a chaotic time. I randomize it.
yes. The work that you've otherwise had has not been so overbearing that you can't get in a little bit of time to research over this. Um, as you were looking over the pad, um, sipping on some tea, the there wasn't that much that stood out about the mission of the SS Aldrin to you specifically. It was using one of those old Neptune-style survey craft, the baby Einsteins, as you may recall. And for those curious at the look of them, they were actually one of them, a derelict one, was featured in the Groundskeeper. That was our second adventure or second episode. So you should totally check it out. Um, but yes, that one was. It's actually presently on a return course to Earth. They are known for, they were a relatively early commissioned ship, so on a good day, they might be able to crack Warp 2.2 right now. Though some ships have gotten the upgrade to move closer to Warp 3. This was not one of them, and they'll probably be, once they do get home, they'll be spending some time in an overhaul in order to resupply, re-equip, and probably gain more specialized scientific gear for this mission, as well as refit some of those systems, at least so long as Starfleet can maintain an exploratory wing. Um, the crew, there's nothing particularly special or no one that stands out from any time that you would have known them. This is an older, or at least this is a crew that was put together, I think, largely before many of the events that had been that had intervened recently. So they might have been operating even pre Zindi crisis. So just a small, like, few dozen humans just out on there, a mix of scientists and you know, other sort of standard officers. No Makos on board. Very basic survey craft. That said, if you want to spend momentum to obtain any information, you're welcome to do that.
I don't think specifically at this point. I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, in that case, your reading is interrupted when a gentle feminine voice interludes. "Oh, I'm not. Would I be disturbing you right now, Commander?"
Patel looks up from the pad and says, "Oh, Dr. Natala, I wasn't expecting you." And then he says a quick greeting in Denobulan and bows his head.
She responds in kind, meeting you directly in Denobulan as well. Did you have the chance to actually visit Denobulan and study on-world, or did you pick that up on Earth?
No, I've never actually had the pleasure of being on Denobula. Actually, before taking this assignment, I had only been off planet once from Earth.
Oh.
And yeah, during that fated mission, I had a chance to board a Denobulan craft that was in distress, and made some friends there from that mission. And sort of one thing led to another. Communication with each other across the vast distances, learning things about culture and language.
Well, I suppose one can realize their spirit of adventure at any time, and I'm heartened to see that you picked it up as well.
I find the Denobulan demeanor fascinating. You're a very accepting people, very open-minded. For occasionally for people like me, it's not super easy to fit in, but Denobulans make it easy.
It's, I think, a necessity to our survival. With the often scarce scarce ability to settle even on our own world and the worlds where we operate our communities. Well, it's always been some degree of proximity has always been necessary, and when not properly managed, it creates a great degree of tension. So we've found over time that the best way for community function is clear communication, acceptance, and the general willingness to greet even adversity with some degree of cheerful disposition to find the good in whatever is going wrong, or at least take solace amongst each other. That's the best way to make sense. Deal with these situations.
I feel like Earth could learn much from Denobula. And hopefully we'll get that chance in the future, as our peoples have more and more interaction with each other.
Oh, I would agree. I have heard a little bit of exploits of some of these humans, some of your fellow humans. There's some word of Starfleet ships that travel out further, and certainly news of one of our own that's actually had the pleasure of joining one of your crews.
Yes, the Dr. Phlox.
Yes.
Something of a famous person within the fleet, it seems, judging by the news.
Yes, he was quite a proficient veterinarian when I had first heard of him.
The veterinarian, you say? And he clears his throat and gulps a bit. Oh, I hadn't heard that. The Enterprise crew brought a veterinarian on board as a doctor, but I suppose xenobiology it makes some degree of sense.
As you were stuttering along with that. She's just greeting you with a very neutral. Well, she's greeting you with a smile, but something that is extremely hard to read. Um, and
Especially for Patel, who doesn't read people at all.
yes, she'll let that linger for maybe another beat or so after the conversation and say, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist the joke. Um,
Oh, you were pulling my leg, I see. Very good, Doctor.
yes, yes. Now, it's actually an amusing, well, when I'd been working with, I'd actually been working with Kara back in the day, and we found that some of the translation was a little imprecise when I was attempting to comprehend some of the human languages. The particular the English dialect that some people speak, or that's a sub-language. Sorry, there are obviously we all most planets do tend to have um, like a few sets of languages depending on regional variance. Earth has just a few slight more that are a little tricky to parse out from times. English is one of the strange languages.
Yes, but one of the most common, if not the most common. It's certainly up there.
Quite right. It was when I was attempting to translate some of the Denobulan, I found that well, the different some of the difference in wording actually. I think that it amused you to know that there's when I was translating, I had initially referred to myself as veterinarian Natala as opposed to Doctor Natala. The Denobulan to Earth translation, there's something there's some subtle nuances that get lost a little bit in the meaning.
I'm not quite sure I follow.
Hmm. Well, it would be a little more effort to explain, and I'll admit, I had to send a few messages back to my communications officer from my previous ship in order to sort that all out. But the point is, it's all resolved here. That and updating the translators that we have should be all good to go. Yeah.
Patel just sort of blinks and I guess smiles politely back.
Yes, yes. I've got to imagine that you do, however, take on at least a little bit of that sense of community on a starship like this. That's certainly a much more cramped vessel than, uh, well, even for its size, it's a relatively cramped vessel even compared to what I'm used to, and you seem to have a pretty large crew operating it.
Yeah, the Daedalus class is one of the older or slightly older designs in service. The more modern ships, the NX, have much more room and much fewer people on board. Here we are a little bit packed in, and if you ask me, it's a little too much sometimes. But, which is why I enjoy opportunities like this that I have. And he looks around the empty mess hall to catch my breath a little bit. But I'm not one of the members of the crew who is usually seen to be fraternizing with the rest of them too much. I mostly keep to myself, for better or worse. It's just how I am.
It's a pity. I would have thought you might have gained something more from the ability to enjoy that sense of community, as many connections as you felt like you developed with other Denobulans.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I enjoy the connections. I just have never had super good success with seeking them out myself. I come across as a bit bookish, I think, and for some people that can be a little intimidating or off-putting.
Perhaps one simply needs to make more of the effort to connect with you, she says.
That may be so.
Hmm. Well,
I'm the first to admit that I can be a particular person
hmm.
with my own eccentricities.
I suppose for the time being, if you ever care to indulge in some of those eccentricities, I wouldn't mind getting to know more.
If she's coming on to him in any way, he definitely does not pick up on that.
She might be a
And
little bit, but yeah.
yeah, he's interpreting it completely platonically. Then,
Yes.
yeah, that would be lovely. As you say, it's not a very large ship. Uh, you'll be able to find me if you ever are interested in a little bit of what did my students used to call it, hanging out.
So that's what they're calling it these days.
Movie night and chill? No.
Oh, spectacular. I think that she'll just giggle a little bit at the notion, and um, and probably continue just to indulge you in a little bit of idle conversation on that matter. Maybe share little bits of her own time, um, both as a spacefarer and from Denobula, taking some time to tell you a little bit more about the world that uh, and its people that you've started to study but not fully had the chance to know yet. So a few more insights will come from that. Uh, there probably isn't a lot more that you'll gain about the Aldrin mission. Not that there was much else to give you. The most interesting thing about them thus far, it seems, is that they were going to go the place where you are drawing ever nearer to. Um,
Hmm.
but you'll get a bit of a look first.
Yeah, and I guess beyond that, we would have probably at some point talked about science and work and like her specialty. I think is she's an archaeologist, right? So that's not something that I think it's something that Patel maybe finds fascinating, but he doesn't have
No.
much competence in. But
Yeah.
he does have the geology angle that he can help with. So
Yeah. And she will definitely be interested in hearing more about that. She will just seem to at least generally bear an interest in what you're discussing. Some of that may be for less than platonic reasons. Otherwise, she is also quite a curious mind, and thus it would not be a stretch in the slightest for her to just want to absorb that information for the sheer fact of having another scientist on board who is highly proficient in their particular field, and it's an opportunity to learn something new, maybe think of something in a different way. So,
I think for his part, Patel is clearly enjoying the scientific back and forth. I guess a little bit.
yes. So,
See, we do have scientists on the ship, but yeah, I think he's probably bored them enough with lectures and things like that. So
yeah.
having somebody a little bit more on eye level is nice.
Yeah. It also helps that she's not within your chain of command, so that probably
Mm.
eases the casual nature of a discussion.
Yeah, her being a civilian academic definitely makes him feel much more at home, I think.
Yes. So while all of that is going on, let's keep on going down the horn. Um, Shira, is there anything that you would be up to right now?
Um, she's been helping out with the Limpet Mine project, of course. Probably keeping busy with various what's it called? Simulations of attacks and stuff. But yeah, otherwise just waiting for the contact to get in contact again.
Indeed. It has been relatively silent since then. The most you might have gotten would be the occasional, like, or an occasional low grade sort of basically ping that would, and a signal request for just you know, basically the effect of a return ping on a separate sense, or on a like slightly different frequency, just something to essentially maintain a closer lock on a position. It is all, as far as you can tell, on channels that the Imperial Guard might use from time to time, albeit very sparsely. Something you would expect they don't think the Vulcans are looking at. So um, while I suspect you are keeping this as above board with the Aegis crew as possible. Um, whether the captain permits that that is probably a question that the two of you would have needed to work out at some point, basically.
I mean, just the bridge crew can know, but I don't want to extend further.
Yep.
Given all the secrecy going on with this whole archaeological thing, on top of everything else, so
Fair enough. Fair enough.
keep it to people we know we can trust.
Yeah.
All right. So that'll definitely be the case then. And we'll go in and check in more with Shira a bit later. Dr. Lambeth, how about you? Beyond readying the sick bay, or making sure that the sick bay remains ready, is there anything in particular you think that Danny would be up to?
Ben, you muted my man.
We'll come back to Dr. Lambeth later. While all that's going on, Saral, is there anything that you would be up to?
Well, Soral is definitely buried in his ship and is going through the program he used to decipher the coordinates. I think that pretty much consumes his day and night.
Yes.
If no one else requests his presence.
Yeah, or otherwise pesters him. Saral remains the shut-in.
Good.
As long as he's not creating any trouble.
All right. Well then, I think with all of that said, we've run through the horn pretty firmly. So let's take it on down through. I think the Aegis is beginning its final approach towards Fomalhaut. So at some point, like as that next day dawns, and we're starting to get into Alpha Shift, a report from the helm, from navigation specifically, will indicate that you are approaching the Fomalhaut system. You are now at a range where sensor analysis could be conducted with a fair degree of detail.
Cool. I'll bring everybody to yellow alert. I'll bring the ship to yellow alert, general quarters, and let's get some ideas of what the hell we're about to walk into.
All right. So
You mean condition yellow or whatever it's called?
yeah.
Yes.
God, I can't wait for them to change.
I must say, I am not a fan of having to swap out these light bulbs. But yes, we are now at condition status yellow, not quite to full action stations.
Those are the blue light bulbs, Crichton.
Oh
Not the
no!
other ones.
Condition blue. Oh god, we're gonna land.
We're gonna fungal jump. Wait, what? Or was it black? Can't remember.
I think black was the fungal jump thing, spore drive.
Do we
Blue is when Voyager was gonna land.
do we use a black light for that then? The bridge starts glowing.
Why the bridge? What have you been up to?
I may have well, I've been waiting for a while, Conley interjects, for them to introduce some cup holders here, and they haven't, and sometimes I can't always keep the cup in a nice place, so there might be some sticky patches here. I promise, I've been trying to clean them up as best I can, but I just need some cup holders here.
She'll just hide her cup holder slot on the captain's seat.
I imagine
Captain's privilege.
everybody has one except the helm.
Yes. But yeah, so we are now on the bridge station. senior officers are in place. Saral, if you would like, you may also be on the bridge.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty handy with sensors, so.
Yes, yes. Let's see.
Well, I'm tapping into a bridge feed from down in engineering.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say you could either be doing that or you could run up to the bridge and man the damage control slot. The one place on the bridge that has no chair but does have a cup holder.
You know what? I will head up to damage control there. I think the guys and the gals down there in engineering can handle the place.
Copy that. In that case, the only senior officer not right up on the bridge, or at least not at a console, would be Dr. Lambeth, who could decide to come up if he so wished. I'll leave that to you, Ben.
Do we have Ben?
He might still be AFK,
All right.
at the very least muted. So let's see. Yep. Connolly says, Captain, we are approaching the main system here. We should be in scanning range now.
All right. Do so.
All right, Patel, if you'd like to take a sensor scan, then that would be a reason and science roll. This would be assisted by the ship sensors and science. This normally would be a difficulty 5, however, there are 2 factors in play. First and foremost, the ship's advanced sensors, or the advanced sensor suites reduces the difficulty by 1. Also, the crew of the Broken Sword had intervened by that the Quatlu spend in chat to reduce the difficulty of this task by 1. So you actually only need to score a 3 in order to completely succeed.
Okay, I'm going to take one of the momentum to give myself an additional die.
Of course.
Easy peasy. And somebody got the ship?
Yeah. What do I need to roll for the ship?
Sensors plus science.
Sensors and science. Go.
All right.
Neat.
So
So we get the momentum back that I used?
Yes, you do, which means no worries sharp in terms of dropping that.
Right. I'm sorry. I forgot I was.
No. I was saying you don't need to do that because
okay.
of the. If you can pick it back up, great. If not, just delete that momentum on the board and then draw another one to replace it. Which could include. All right. So, what I'm going to do for you here, Patel, is I am going to drop a. Give me just one moment to save and properly set up the sensor readout in the handouts. I'll give you an alert when that's ready.
The ship sensors are really chewing on this report.
Yep.
You can hear like the hard drive sound happening in the background.
Yep.
Is it going to be that sensor readout handout, or is that an old one?
The old one I am updating for you.
Okay.
All right. Part of this is I had to switch it to a. I need to move the sheet over. And let's see here. All right. Let's see. Okay, so that should be properly up to date now, but let's see. You'll also get the displayed map of Fomalhaut ahead. So as the sensors pull this up, you simultaneously get a visual with the overlay of a bright A-type main sequence star surrounded by a very dense cloud of dust, larger stellar debris, and gaseous material directly ahead. The system itself, it appears to be like a great eye in space, with the star representing the pupil and everything around it, kind of layering the iris and cornea and all the like. That being said, I'm also going to try and clean up that sheet there real quick because it did weird things when I tried to just paste that separately, and it's, let's see. Here we go. Sorry for the slight delay, guys. I'm just trying to break up some of this. Alright, so here is what you have to start with. I believe because you succeeded as a science officer, Patel, you will have like a bonus momentum that specifically applies to obtaining information, and Studious does allow that to basically work together. So you will have 2 free questions at the start of this. You also have 5 momentum in the pool that you can ask about this. But I will let you, of course, relay information to start.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold the questions once I let everybody know what's coming in the sensors. But looks like we have, as expected, a sort of pre-solar system amount of debris in the Fomalhaut system. So as you can see on the view screen, and he looks up and points to the view screen. There are no concrete planets that have yet formed in the system. However, I am reading various particle densities, some of which are from the size of dust grains all the way up to small planetoids, roughly 80 kilometers in diameter. Between the density of this planetary nebula and the radiation from the star, sensors and communications are going to be a little bit spotty in this system. I would say probably no more than mid-range. As long as we're inside the cloud. The disk is pretty active too. I'm reading a lot of very interesting currents that are being caused by the solar wind here in the system. So it is making navigation probably a little bit unpredictable in the system. But this is interesting. I'm noticing there's actually sort of an unusually clear path through the cloud, sort of spiraling through the disk. Roughly 400,000 kilometers in diameter.
Connolly will say, I'm punching that up now on the screen. There's an exterior entry point, and it looks like an interior entry point as well.
Oh, and that's fascinating. And he looks down at his console as he's looking through this, and he looks through the little viewfinder thing. I'm reading a power surge coming from is it within this corridor, I guess? That wasn't super clear from the readout.
You think it's somewhere kind of in the midst of the corridor, so I'd put it probably somewhere thereabouts.
This is interesting. If I'm reading this right, this could indicate artificial power emissions.
Source?
Can I spend my 1 question to see if I can get any more information about that power source? If I need to be more specific, is it a power source coming from what looks like a fusion or antimatter generator of some sort?
I will allow one of those points to go towards the answering the question. The particular spike would more likely suggest an antimatter reactor of some sort, thus more likely the sort of power source you'd see in a pretty much any variety of warp engine. While the nature of the system makes it like completely undiscernible, or like you could not work out a particular signature. For one thing, you don't expect anybody's actually going to warp in that soup. Even with deflectors to full, that would not be safe. Um, but it does suggest either somebody or a more established power is already here and operating in some fashion, or um, perhaps this system isn't so completely devoid of life as you might have thought.
Yeah, so relay that back about an antimatter reactor. I have another question, unless the captain has one.
I was gonna ask if there's any current warp trails.
Yep, that would have been my question too.
Yeah, if we, who was the last person been here?
Nobody seems to have operated a warp trail here recently enough for you to pick it up. It is long since decayed.
I would have probably said impulse trail, but I mean it's probably the same thing, right?
Anything like that, it's the best readout you might have gotten would have been from either end of the corridor that you've discovered, and near as you can tell, there is just there's no sign of anything there.
Does it seem, based on what I saw of the power surge, does it seem like it's a constant like state of power, or is it like flickering in and out? Like, is it stable or not? Just because you said surge.
It's more likely that it is at a constant surge, but it's more I would say it's more that it's likely that whatever was in there passed somewhere near like a segment of the disk that was less, basically marginally less, like it presented marginally less interference, thus allowed for some sort of energy reading to make it through.
Got it. So it's surging because it's obscured by the cloud, basically.
Yes. So
Okay.
you may still ask other questions. That would come at the cost to your momentum pool. So if anybody has anything they want to ask.
One momentum burn I'd ask Patel is I was gonna ask a question, I forgot it. Do we have, or is there any health concerns regarding the passage and our whole plating? Will it protect us from any radiations going through that pathway?
He switches over the sensors to like show a different filter or something. Says for a more conclusive analysis, I'll have to send these results down to the med bay. But, and then ... looking at the GM.
It looks as though, honestly, within the belt, so the hull plating would be able to keep the radiation down past a certain point. The ambient dust cloud, or the debris ring, is actually working in your favor, insofar as it is actually absorbing some of the radiation as it comes in, and thus dispersing it to an extent. The same thing which makes communications and sensors more difficult or nigh impossible to operate at certain ranges is going to also provide you some shielding, or some supplemental shielding.
Okay, yeah, I relayed that back over.
All right.
From an engineering point of view, anything I would see about that issue?
You mean in terms of issues with the hull plating?
Yeah, and absorption of energy.
Oh. You probably just don't want to get too close to the star, and you probably don't want to go to warp in the
Okay.
in there.
Cyril, what exactly are we looking in that? In here?
I have no idea, Captain. That's where the trail led us.
I'm never necessarily as nice as it is to have a path brought out to you. Never a fan of what could be at the end of them. All right, Connolly.
Taking a look at like the sensor data, does this path look natural in any way, or very, very unnatural?
Would you prefer the momentum spend to that, or would you want to roll yourself here? There is still
What would a
ample
roll
momentum.
be?
Probably insight and science here.
Difficulty?
I'll put it up to 3.
3. Yeah, why not? Let's give this. And I would buy a die, because no momentum has to be spent.
Fair enough.
Or you know what? You know what? I'm spending a threat.
Very good.
Because you clearly need more.
Yes. The poor struggling GMs of the world.
Hey, how much threat did you generate by your testosterone duel?
I don't know what you're talking about. It was always
I mean, for Shira and Sharp, that was the estrogen and estrogen analog.
It makes absolute. I stay by what I said. Women are free to have testosterone duels in the 23rd century.
Fair enough.
Sensor operations, diagnostics.
Yep.
Side science.
Oh boy.
Oof.
So that is
I'm
one success, a complication.
Re-roll. Was it reroll all or reroll one?
I
Can never
believe
remember.
that it's now like Modiphius has shifted the rules to where you can re-roll the pool,
Pool?
or at least
Okay.
your particular dice.
I'll happily do that because I want to reroll both of these twos.
If I'm mistaken, comment me, or rather, by all means, make a comment in the chat here, or in the archive of the videos. I might even look at it. But with that, there's 2 successes.
That's not enough.
You could succeed at cost if you wish.
Might be more threat, wouldn't it?
It would.
Nah. Soral is grown up enough to fail. I mean, he's kind of looking at the data and kind of speaking to the captain while looking at it. It's even hard to discern if this is in any way a natural form path or very artificial. And together with the energy spike that Patel found, we might be looking at something artificial. Are we finding someone in there? An energy source would say maybe. Sorry, that's the best guess I have.
all right.
I
Connolly, bring us in slowly. Crichton, bring us to Condition Red, and if you can, invite Lily and the rest of her crew up to the bridge.
Aye, sir. Action stations, all crew set to Condition Red and man your action stations. Dr. Sloan, Tenkat Fen, Dr. Natala, please report to the bridge. Okay, and Connolly is going to begin navigating at impulse to bring you in closer to, well, he'll actually ask, there's a less dense segment in the interior of the system. There's also one near the exterior. Would you have a preference which direction I take, Captain?
Driver's choice, she says.
I kind of want to go closer to the eye, he says, so he will begin to angle in and set the, fire up the impulse drive and take you into the zone where the deeper blue sort of clouds meet with the more scarlet, or I guess that's more of a magenta sort of coloring. So while all of that is happening, I'll go ahead and move us back to the bridge for just a moment. And out from the turbo lift, within just a few minutes of transit time, the crew of the Lily are actually going to enter. The system will still be on display as Connolly is bringing her in. Fen will be the first to interject. Ooh, that is quite marvelous. I haven't seen the like in some time. Sloane will then follow up. I take it we're here, Captain?
We are, and given that the path is quite obvious to anyone who has sensors, we're making our way to the only path available.
Okay, well, we will want to keep our eyes open. If Mr. Sorrell's rather curious processing is any indication, and well, let's call this a little bit of a hunch on my part, I think I would expect maybe, just maybe, we might find some other piece of the puzzle in this.
If you like, Mr. Patel does have a sensor details that might interest you.
Yeah, definitely. Natala. These two will walk over and take a look at Patel's sensor readouts.
Yeah, I'll stand aside, and if they want to look through the cool little ViewMaster thing, they can.
Yeah. Sloane at least may indulge a little bit here, and let's see. Actually, just as you were backing off that way, Fen is also going to come in and crowd around, his wings fully out. He's very excited. Ooh. Well, this is quite fascinating, although, oh dear, this viewer design is most inconvenient, he says, his beak catching a little on the console. Also, I believe that yours, I don't know whether this is an issue with your sensors or perhaps a misread, but I believe that you are in fact missing something very crucial here.
Is that so?
Oh yes, of course. The gravitational activity in the system does not appear to fully account for everything that is responsible for the activities. In particular, some of the excitement of the stellar bodies does actually appear to have more to do with roughly 2 orbiting paths. Here and here. Something that is stirring it up. One of them, oh dear, it'll be too far in the debris and detritus. I wouldn't want to get in that depth, but one of them seems to intersect fairly closely with the path.
Which one?
I would put it at the outer ring, closer to the 3 AU distance.
Is it just me, Soral says out loud? Or does the path conveniently end at the orbit of the inner object?
It might be a useful anchoring system for some of the more troublesome elements of the disk at the other end. That would be quite an interesting bit of stellar engineering. Who does that type of work anyway, though?
I certainly leave that up to Mr. Patel and Mr. Roll and your crew, Doctor. She still gives a polite smile.
Sloane is just is looking a little baffled at this, and I mean, in some ways, Fen sounds like he's talking a bit of nonsense, but Patel is he's as you were rerunning over the numbers, and I will chalk this up to the GM not being terribly clear, but there is actually the possibility of some planetary bodies that are that could be located in there, that they could be exerting that extra bit of gravitational influence. But it is strange as all get out with as much debris as the system otherwise seems to have. So
Yeah, I'll look back over the readout now that we've had a little bit, like a second pair of eyes looking at it, and yeah, this could make sense. We could even be talking about planetary bodies with enough mass to sustain some kind of atmosphere.
yeah, so I would find it doubtful anything could sustain life on in a system like this. There's just so much debris that anything. I scarcely doubt they this anything would have more than maybe a few 100,000 years to form before some sort of object from the system were attracted in. Conditions would be difficult. Oh. Let's see. With all of that, the Aegis is going to cut down through the stellar disk and head in near the interior orbit. Much as Fen had indicated, there doesn't appear to be a main like whatever other orbiting object is near the entry to this corridor. It does not appear to be anywhere properly within range. But this relatively clear part of the passage is it is still coherent enough for you to enter in, and yeah, that'll get things started. I am just for a bit of a test to see how things are going with Connolly. I'll ask you guys to throw up a let's see, a roll from the engines and con as he uses thrusters to take you guys in. Uh, I can get us back up to low impulse after this, sirs, but I would recommend that we, at least for the initial entry, stick to thrusters so as to be absolutely careful. At least till I have a better idea of what's going on here.
Absolutely agree with you.
All right. So I was only going to make this a difficulty 1 for Connolly, but if somebody could roll for the ship here, that will give you just a little more momentum.
And
if
we
it
explode.
succeeds.
I got it. Roll con and
Engines, please.
okay, that's what I needed. Engine and on and rolling now.
Okay, that is no successes from the ship, so the Aegis will simply flying through the accretion disk. It will ease down into the relatively open part of the disk, slightly nearer the star. With hull plating polarized, there are no readouts of any hazards, although there's perhaps a slight increase in like particle excitation on the hull plating that Shira's reading. Still within tolerance levels. You just don't want to get too close to the star. Connolly eases you in and says, All right. Entering the main disk, firing up impulse engines. 1/4 impulse. Uh, Traversing the disk, or specifically the corridor, you find that there are, as you move through the corridor with its twists and turns, uh, the like this segment of the system, appears to be uh, fairly. Trying to think here. The best analog would be almost sort of. Let's see. The best sort of analog in terms of like a naval tradition would be imagining like a relatively calm like route near the bottom of the sea where like mountains rise up that a submarine might have had to traverse. It allows narrow passes, some of them with fairly tight turns, and bearing in mind these are like the corridor has a diameter of like about 4,000 kilometers in most cases, which sounds like a lot of space, but when you are a ship traveling extensively fast, it is something that are like at speeds approaching almost 1/4 the speed of light. Um, you want to be able to make corrections
Yeah.
fairly carefully. So it's something that Connolly and the navigator are timing out very carefully, traversing the corridor. It is definitely closer quarters, although the ship appears to be able to manage it well enough. Um, you will get the occasional flyby, or like you'll see an occasional um, object, nothing quite so large as the Aegis, but something just drift on by as it crosses a part of the corridor. Uh, and yeah, you are otherwise treated to to an array of colors as the gases and dust in the system interact with the ambient radiation coming off of the star.
Is this giving me a familiar vibe too? And I'll text it to you.
Let me take a look here. I wouldn't say that, no.
Okay.
Or it's not quite as inhospitable. So, that said, during the traversal process, is there anything that any of you would want to do right now, or any questions, anything in particular?
I will say out loud, or mutter out loud in the direction of Sloan. Well, you certainly took me to one of the more beautiful places. If it's not, this keeps up, I certainly have no complaints.
Well, I suppose I don't mind sightseeing on Earth's dime, Captain.
Nor do I.
I think we'll both be more comfortable, though, once we have some more answers here.
She'll just nod.
Let's see. Connolly will call out like another turn that he's having to make. He'll say, I don't want to alarm anyone. I should note, Captain, based on the readings that Mr. Patel gave me, we are passing the segment of the corridor where the energy source might have been near. I'm not seeing anything up ahead.
She'll just get up. How stressed does Connolly look, having to, thread the needle, as it were?
This situation is doing him a slight concern, but the navigation is not so difficult that like he isn't worried about imminently scratching the paint or anything. It's more just this is not something he can take too fast or do without careful coordination from his navigator seated next to him.
Yeah. She'll just get up and rest a hand on her shoulder. Slow down to 1/8. You're doing just fine, Connolly. Patel, anything on our sensors about the possible energy source?
Can I throw up another roll for that?
Yeah, sure. I will ask you for a difficulty 3 sensors and science roll. I'm going to set this to difficulty 3, and I'm going to declare that because of the traits in scene, specifically the interference from the cloud ahead, that there is simply too much interference for the sensor suites to work to their full level, so you will not see a reduction in difficulty.
Okay, but it's a total of 3 difficulty.
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to spend 1 momentum then.
All right.
You said reason science?
Yes. 2 successes. The ship does still get to assist with reason, rather with sensors plus science. So, I guess, Brian, if you still have that sheet handy.
Reason and science.
Or sensors and science from the ship.
Sensors and science. Sensors. Science and rolling.
Ooh,
Nice.
4
Nice.
successes. Let's see. So, Patel, you are going to pick up that there are signs of some mix of a highly degraded impulse trail. You suspect that it is mostly to do with the ambient radiation here. An additional interesting side effect appears to be that the radiation seems to interact with the ion trails in such a way as to basically degrade the ionizing radiation that much faster. It's the equivalent of leaving tracks in the snow during a blizzard. Something quickly fills them in and makes it much more difficult to see, such that you just managed to get the impression that there are boot tracks, but you couldn't tell exactly what type of, or you can tell that there are tracks from something, but you can't discern whether it's a boot or a footprint. Does it have toes or claws? Basics of the analogy there.
Got it. Would that analogy also hold that like these tracks are recent?
Yes.
Okay.
So that tells you that it is very easy for the sensor, for the impulse trail to be degraded from the ambient radiation.
I'm just picking up the hint of an impulse trail, but I can't get any more information about that. But I can say that it's likely recent, and I can't do any sort of further identification about the drive that caused this.
She just nods.
There's one more part to that, and
Oh, this is also a fascinating side effect of the sensor report. Looks like I'm detecting a gas giant dead ahead. Well, I mean, relatively speaking, it's got some distance to us, but generally dead ahead, with what looks like several terrestrial moons in orbit. I assume they're rocky moons, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Connolly, with the skills I know you have, how fast can you go through here?
Oh dear. I'll see if I can get us right past the logo there. There we go. That's me copying the page by mistake. Anyway, I should be able to kick us up to a quarter once we get past this turn here. Maybe a third. I don't know anymore, and I'd have to start saying that we're taking power from the engine reserves in order to kick that up. Might be
Out of character. How'd you guys feel about trying to catch up a little bit if somebody's already been in here?
Do we know how long ago this trail has been? Like, not exactly because it's
No,
decaying so
that was the
weirdly,
thing.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but is it like from the rate of decay? Is it minutes, hours, days?
I'm going to, well, let's see. Let me first say that Patel did succeed at another sensor task, so that does mean that you do have 2 free questions, and you could make that one of them.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, so I'm going to say that one right there suggests that complete decay would probably be like a matter of hours and maybe scarcely more than an hour and a half. But it's rapid enough to where, like, unless you have very recent engine scans, it would be tough to discern exactly what would be causing like anything in strong detail about the nature of the impulse drive.
No, but it is like less than an hour old, basically, or something along those lines.
This is probably about it's probably just under an hour old at this particular time.
That's close. Yeah, let's catch up. We have a
Alright.
second question.
How much power was in that? It was in that impulse drive. Like, what kind of classification is backing that sort of engine?
I mean, I'll say that it looks like it could be comparable to the Aegis, give or take. I'll give you something within a scale 2 to a scale 4.
I like a scale 2. Is when you went 2 scale 4, I have issues with.
That it's really because of the degradation. I can answer you within that range, but I can't give you anything more precise. So this, it could be a ship of any of those, like a 2, 3, or 4.
I mean, what are we gonna do? Turn back?
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, we'll spend a single power to thread the needle, as it were.
All right. Let's see. If you so wish,
I
Connolly
will
can...
give the command as such with my freaking captain power
Captain Power activate.
to help out with this if I can.
Okay, I will let. I'll make it a roll then. I'll have Connolly roll. This one is going to be daring plus con, since you're having to fire up the impulse engines in a while the corridor is relatively clear, this is the first time you have navigating through it, so it's not as well mapped. I am going to go ahead and spend 3 points of threat to increase the complication range up to 3.
Fun.
Oop.
Can I help in any sort of manner with like a daring command or something?
Presence and command would be the definite assist here.
All right.
What difficulty is it?
The difficulty on this task, I'm going to say, is 2. Also, I think that I'm going to, just because Connolly is that person to be a little bit bold here, and it's literally a talent. I'm allowing him to buy an additional die to tap his bold con. Well, should I give him bold con? Do you want him to give me back threat, or would you prefer using some of your considerable momentum?
I think we're using our momentum. Use a
Very
single
good.
momentum to dash or die.
All
I
right.
was about to say, why should he be different than the rest of the crew?
If you drop a momentum there, Connolly will spend an additional d20 here.
Yep, and I will assist by using my own value.
It wouldn't really come through with an assist here.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
That being said, if you want, Connolly could invoke a value to auto crit
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
Okay. just going to go with simply to boldly go. So I'll take 2 successes for the auto crit, and let's see what he pulls in on momentum. Oh dear, that is
That is
another
awesome.
4 successes right there. So,
And that's another 2 there too.
Oh, wow.
yep.
She'll say, Connolly, we wouldn't want to be late to our date. She says, everyone, brace. You have the con. And she like just trots her way back over to the captain's chair to flop on.
With an effortless set of micro corrections and from the thrusters and selective pulses of the impulse drive, um, Connolly is going to race around the corridors, race around the corridor, like calling out between him and the navigator different junctures of when to make the turn, specifically logging them partly to remember the way back as well as ensure safe navigation. When one asteroid, it seems, appears to be particularly out of a helpful position, Connolly is just going to pull the ship up and over, rotating it on its axis, so it would be like a somersault basically along the port axis to where, like, if you imagine the ventral conical position, um, and you imagine it is passing through a tunnel. Let's say it and the asteroid were on a course that would be like roughly the 6 o'clock. So let me give you a little visual representation. And I know this is less than ideal here. Let's see. Oop. So say the asteroid is about on this path, and Connolly was about to pass through that as well. The Aegis would pull up in the Aegis would practically be pulling up from that course in a sort of rounded pattern, and it would stay to where the ventral part or the conical engineering hull remains on, well, like it starts off on that axis, but it basically follows along the course of that circle. So kind of if you imagine from, like, say the reboot film when it's a barrel roll, I think is what I'm looking for here. When like when in the 2009 film when the Enterprise rotates, only it's more of like following along this particular
Right.
course just to get around the asteroid. So, and I thought that this was in the token, or I thought this was in the map layer, but apparently not, so let's fix that. Alright. So yeah, with that, Connolly is able to shift around through different parts of the corridor and take you much closer to the gas giant. Aye, sir. Gas giant is ahead, picking up slightly stronger readings from the impulse drive. Nothing sufficient for our computers to recognize, but it seems like it's at least a little bit hotter, and it seems like the trail definitely degrades closer to the planet. Or, I don't know, maybe something else radioactive-wise causing that to... I'm not entirely sure. It could be possible that they cut out the impulse around there.
Let's do the same.
Okay. So yeah, with that, the ship will reduce to thrusters as you clear the as you begin to clear the end of the corridor near the gas giant ahead. And let's see here, just get this properly set up. Oh. Okay, so ahead of you, you find a large, a fairly large gas giant, something comparable in size and scale to Saturn, I would say, although with a much different coloration. The rings in the debris in the sort of planetary disk around it, or the debris disk, uh, seem to be also quite a bit larger compared to most planets that you are familiar with. Um, it seems as though it's been cut up a little bit in a few places where objects from around the system may have passed through, um, but a lot of those appear to be caught in its gravitational wake, and because of the relative gravitational dominance that this thing is exerting, it's regenerating the rings in pretty quick fashion thanks to that ability. So they take on they actually have quite a few decent-sized objects in the stellar disk. Uh, you can likewise make out the signs of several moons that appear to be in orbit. Most appear to be, excuse me, there. Most appear to be terrestrial, although some of them are just outright lacking atmosphere. They're more like dead rocks in space. There's at least one that appears to have a very cool, very dense sort of methane atmosphere going on. One, however, Patel, as you will find, appears to be Minshara class, albeit a very harsh and desolate looking Minshara class.
I'll bring that up then. Is there any on the reading specifically? Can I make out like anything else besides like weather conditions or the fact that it's harsh and that it's breathable, like life signs or power or anything like that?
From what you can discern, as you like at this range, I would say the orbit, um, I will just give you for free, and this comes largely from the fact that with all of the success you had earlier, I don't think there's much point in giving you a roll. I mean, that's 4 successes over what you needed. So, or no, it might be 3 still, but with the auto crit, it's actually 5. So I'm just refilling your momentum pool, and you still have some floating here. Anyway, the what your sensors are telling you basically is that the planet appears to be something of a very arid desert-like world, um, or there's not much in the way of subsurface moisture or anything, but the atmosphere does appear to be breathable within those lines. Much like the planet itself, or I mean, much like other parts of the disk, it seems that there's considerable readouts of like heavy iron ores, magnesite, and kelbonite deposits. Um, Other minerals that make scanning somewhat difficult. So if there's anything like especially major in terms of electronics, that would probably get scrambled by them. That being said, and I'm just going to say that as a geologist investigating this, you would recognize that some of the areas where those deposits are less significant, they do suggest that the one M-class world may also have the geology suggests that there may be the possibility of a fair amount of subterranean development or openness. So it's possible that like you aren't getting the whole story necessarily, but it's possible that there could be quite fascinating cave systems there as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that said, I just gave you all that to start with. If you have other questions, I think that there's 2 floating momentum in the pool right now. So um, I'll
Where's the ship? Is the ship out there amongst the planetary orbit or moon orbit?
The vessel does not appear to be in the orbital vicinity. The impulse trail appears to have given out somewhere around the planet, but the sensors do not place it. That means either it is whatever it is, if it were a ship, is taking active measures to hide. Alternatively, they have switched to thrusters, and uh, the gravitational impellers that most thrusters use today are not giving a significant enough reading to be detectable within the range of the planet. I will say the rings aren't helping with the scans that you've taken because of the fact that this is they are accruing the same dust and debris material that is generating like considerable or that is attracting a lot of the radiation. So that's extra interference. Worth noting too on the radiation front, the planet, its atmosphere, much like Vega 9, is fairly thick, or like there's some sufficient magnetic dynamism going on to screen out a lot of that. Um, this is much closer than Vega is, but the gas giant itself and the like sheer amount of debris around here is probably screening it from harmful radiation to where this planet it could be safe for life to exist, or you wouldn't need to go out there with an EV suit necessarily. The bigger hazard is, in all likelihood, the occasional larger bit of debris that could make it through and you know end end the life of whatever large creatures were running there. Basically, this place is dense enough to where the dinosaurs probably wouldn't have lasted
Random
nearly as long.
random KT events.
Yep.
In infrequent times. Yeah.
So the planetoid still hasn't cleared the orbit. It's unfortunate.
All right. I suppose that, and this was a moon that we found that's habitable, right?
One,
How
it
close
looks
is
like
the
a
moon?
5.
How close is the moon from the rings?
It is at a sufficiently far distance to not take much radiation from them. If you were looking to say park a ship near the rings and wondering how long would it take for a shuttle pod to get there,
Yeah.
if you wanted to hide, I'd say that it's relatively, we'll call it a medium distance, so something that or maybe getting into long range, you'd want you could probably make the trip in thrusters and be fine.
All right, Connolly, let's follow our the person ahead of us' plan and find a nice parking space in those rings. Miss Sloan, I imagine you and your crew wish to make a brief visit to the only planet available here for possible study.
Yeah, we didn't come this far for nothing.
All right. She'll look at the crew. Shira, you take the con. Myself, Patel, Saral, will join Miss Sloan's crew on a shuttle to the moon. Out of character, I'm pulling the Star Trek thing.
Yeah. Anybody that wants to push back, either to be on the away mission or anything of the sort, now's the time to jump in.
Do you want me on the away mission?
Oh,
I'd rather have you up here in case of any engineering anomalies. However, I will take a Mako Moira as further backup, security backup.
That's a good idea, man.
And lastly, I'll take what was the nurse's name?
Nurse Marple.
Yeah, actually, Ben, you here? Ben,
Yes, I am here. So
you want? I'll play out of character. Do you want to join the Wii team?
not sure. I'm happy to.
All right.
Actually, if
Yeah,
I think
I'll
I'll hang back on the ship. Actually,
you sure?
yes, I'm a little tired and out of it today, so I haven't been.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
that's fine.
All right. Yep. All right. So I'll have the nurse join us as well for medical. That will be a full shuttle right there, especially with the the avian's wings crowded things up.
Will you be taking the Aegis shuttle or their ship?
Their ship is not terrestrial bound. I do believe.
It could. It wouldn't like it though.
I rather have
Suppose-
something. Go ahead.
I suppose there's always Mr. Sorrel's shuttle though. Seems like it'd be a little more spacious.
Chill Clover Sorrel.
He rolls his eyes. Sure. Why do people keep like offering my shuttle?
Technically,
It's there in the hangar bay. It's taking up space. You need to pay rent.
You're part of the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I feel constant disappointing from all the thoughts about me.
technically, this was a guest who really didn't know better, proposing, "Oh, let's just use this other person's ship, who I can only imagine as part of the crew, even though they
Yeah.
don't wear a uniform."
It's greatly appreciated, Mrs. Sorrel.
If you wear feathers, you don't think about uniforms.
Indeed.
Your offer is greatly appreciated, Mrs. Sorrel. All right, team, let's go.
Okay, so let's see. We've got, just to make sure I have that tracked correctly, we have Sharp, Patel,
Sorrel,
Saral,
Moira,
Laura,
the nurse,
Marple.
I can't remember. Marple.
So,
there we
yep.
go.
So, Craig, that will be an activation. You don't need to
Hey.
ponder it right now. Is the, let's see, what is it? I imagine we'll be doing more of the meat of this next session. Let's see. Then the remainder of the crew of the Lily are all coming along. Which, yes, that would be a crowded bunch to fit in on the shuttle, and that'll leave Shira in command of the ship, along with Romanov, Dr. Lambeth, and Kamali. So,
So on the way to the shuttle bay, I'm gonna swing by one of the science labs and get some spelunking equipment, just in case, because there are all those caves.
okay, I'll say that yeah, the equipment will help create the advantage. In order to do that, I think that would be easy enough to manage. Then the other question would be, let's see. First and foremost, are there any standard equipment for everyone? That would be the obviously phase pistols, tricorder, or phase pistols, scanners, communicators. You spent the momentum earlier to have the decoy communicator, so
Yeah.
you could have a couple of those. Everyone could, at least a number of the crew could have those to create an advantage or perform like a light task in order to create the decoy there, basically. Other than that, we have Patel's spelunking equipment, which I'll freely allow that advantage because there's bound to be some of that with the geology department. Um,
I
The-
will go to Lambeth to, or have the away team go to Lambeth to get anti-radiation inoculations, just to be on the safe side.
yeah, Marple will have like a medical kit basically at the ready with some extra doses and appropriate stuff for that.
And
Um,
even if it's going to be cramped, we don't know yet. I'm not gonna have them have them wear it, but I'm definitely going to make sure we bring along EVA suits. We don't have to wear them yet, but just in case it becomes we find out it's uninhabitable.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, like rebreathers or something would be beneficial.
Now, my particle rifle is an escalation. Do you want me to bring it? I mean, that's pretty much what.
No particle rifles.
Okay.
it's like
Not yet.
all right, just the stun grenades and just the stun grenades and the batons.
Stun grenades, batons, and pistols.
And
Actually,
rocket launcher.
I do think the grenades are an escalation.
No, it does not say. The stun grenades do not say escalation on them.
Oh, good. Then you have a few of those. Then a pistol and the stun batons. So
But yeah, rebreathers, EVA suits,
yes.
potassium pills.
Yeah. So the question would be: is there anything else that you would like to bring? Any other specialized equipment that you would want to request?
Portable power pack,
Why?
just in case we bump into anything.
Is there anything in particular that was needed in the previous archaeological places to access the data, or is it just like recording?
They had fairly standard recording devices. Saral, you actually have a specialized tricorder now that you had modified from some sessions back that would allow you the extra storage capacity for the processing boost, shall we say.
Excellent.
Yep. All right. So, one last chance. If there's anything anybody else wants to bring along.
Spelunking gear covers a lot of stuff, like flashlights and all that jazz.
Could we get like I don't even know the term for it. It's not like a seismic monitor, but I'm thinking of this is going to sound really dumb, but I'm thinking of the beginning of Jurassic Park where they have the thing where they like shoot a shotgun shell and they like sonar the ground or whatever, like to see like stuff that's maybe buried. Do we have any sort of thing like that?
Do we have anything small for that? Like a small handheld scale, not the. I bring a cart.
Like I'm picturing something that's like bigger than a tricorder, but still small enough that I can carry it around, like a little suitcase.
Yeah, I'll say that there's like it's definitely a slightly cumbersome bit of equipment, but it's not like a crate. So if you imagine one of, go ahead.
Yeah, like proper field equipment, basically for a geological survey.
One of those big, it's the sci-fi version of it is one of those big glowy props with like dishes and like a sensor dish and like the glowing bits of sticks, kind of like the I don't know, the EMF reader thing in like Ghostbusters, or like a number of specialized bits of equipment that shows up in like the Next Generation or something like that. It's still got mostly the sleek finish of or the sleek chrome finish of the Enterprise era's equipment, but it's still something a little more bulky. It's probably got like a handle with like the computer controls at the end of it and partly going down into that. I'll say that there is that type of larger scanner. I'll ask for a momentum just to reflect like the opportunity cost of having it.
Sure. With that momentum as well, can I get boosters, communication boosters that I can implant into the walls? That way I can try to maintain a line of communication from the surface into underground.
for this, I'll let Creighton I'll let that fall under the same opportunity cost with Creighton delivering you the last batch here. So, I've been working on these ever since honestly, since the uh, whole mess of missions where between Alpha Centauri and the business with the Nausicaans over at their prospecting base. I figure it's just good for us to be able to keep in touch a little easier. They are prototypes, sir, so just be advised.
I'll try not to break them, she says with a smile.
Thank you, sir.
I split the boosters between the crew. I shall split it with Mora, and we'll just start implanting them at the edge of range of each booster.
Yep.
When we get down there.
Yep. So, with that, yeah, you are loaded up. You have picked up a little bit of specialized gear, and with Saral at the helm, because this is his shuttle, and I'm sure that he's picky enough about letting other people driving it, even if they're going to volunteer his own ship, then at least he's going to have that bit of control.
Yes, it's also custom controls, so
Yep.
they don't make sense to anyone else,
Yep.
at least at first glance.
Indeed not. So, the aft shuttle bay opens its doors with the atmosphere pre-vented, of course, and the docking clamps disengaged. Saral, with a few simple commands on your somewhat disjointed-seeming control interface, you reverse out and reorient the nose of your shuttlecraft towards the surface of the moon below and take it down into the atmosphere of Fomalhaut. Or one of the moon of the gas giant here in Fomalhaut. And I think that is where we are going to leave off for today's session. So we'll get a proper look at the planet below and everything that resides there next time with another episode of Star Trek Adventures Aegis. So I thank you all for stopping in to join us, and I hope you all enjoyed. We will be back live next weekend at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on twitch.tv/GM in the Great Barrier. So for those of you in the archive, if you want to join us, you can take a look in the links below. But yeah, this is where we are going to leave you off for now. So you folks have a good rest of your day.